Hey, what's up, everyone? Chris Manning here from the Locked On Cavs podcast, your daily look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, coming to you a tad bit later on Tuesday, December 7th. But, we're your team every day. Today's show, we're going to talk about Cavs Bucks, which they lost on Monday night in Milwaukee. And we're going to talk about Dylan Windler, who was on assignment with the Cleveland Charge in a move that IMO makes a bunch of sense. That is all, again, coming up today on Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. And by the way, thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every single day. Remember, we are free and available on all platforms. That includes YouTube, where we want to get to 1,000 subscribers by Christmas. Give Evan and I a Christmas present, and it's a free one, so do it.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by TrueBill. TrueBill is the new app that saves you money by helping you identify and stop paying for the subscriptions you don't want or need. And it can even help you negotiate better deals on those you want to keep. Again, I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammerall. Evan, what's up, buddy?
Not a whole lot, man. I am, it's a little chilly today, I had to take the girlfriend to work, and I wore shorts and a North Face, and as soon as that first gust of lake wind hit me, I'm like, this was not the move, especially because I had Birks on, too. I was not equipped for Northeast Ohio weather. I was equipped for lounging around my apartment. But how are you, man?
I'm doing good. Not going on Twitter again, and we're gonna leave that whole thing at that. Twitter sucks. Don't use it unless you have to.
Hey, man, the Cavs are just one Colin Sexton away from being
I said I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk anymore. It's free advertising for them. They can pay us to run an ad.
Like tired and like that. I can't think of the tired equivalent, but that is the wired equivalent. And I'm just like, well, I got to work this into the podcast, working into my article I'm dropping tomorrow about where the Cavs currently stand in the grand dichotomy of the league. But Cavs Bucks was a fun game for what it's worth. I didn't expect the Cavs to win this one, but it was enjoyable. I think it's good to see the Cavs play a championship caliber team with arguably one of the best players in the league out there. I think Giannis looked incredible. I think Chris looked really good. I do think the Bucks are going to be okay with it. Yeah, you look great. I think the Bucks are going to be okay without Lopez. Drew Holiday is a maniac. I love watching him play, but him on Milwaukee just so good. But yeah, man, just it's okay. In the grand scheme of things, like I said, when they lost to Utah, the Cavs aren't going to go 72-10. They also aren't going to go 71-11. So let's shoot for 70-12, I guess.
I think you look at this game, which again the Cavs lose. They had a nice rally in the second half to make it close for a bit. It got within 2 points with about 7 minutes to go, and then Milwaukee kind of pulled away. Milwaukee ends up winning 112-104. All the Bucks had their big three: Giannis, Middleton, and Drew Holiday all have 20 points or more. Jared Allen had 25 for the Cavs. Lauri Markkanen had 20 for the Cavs. Darius Garland had 10 on 3 of 12 shooting. Evan Mobley had 12 on 3 of 10 shooting. And Kevin Love had 15 off the bench on 5 of 11 shooting, all from 3-point range. We're going to do what we're going to do. Here's big takeaway and then some of our little notes. Evan, my big takeaway is just that winning against one of the league's best teams and the defending NBA champions is hard on the second night of a back-to-back, where I think clearly, especially in Garland's case, going up against Drew Holiday after he played 35 minutes the night before, and that game was very intense. That Cavs Jazz game was incredibly intense. The Bucks had a day off. Like this I don't think the Cavs would beat the Bucks on a normal night where everything is even, and things are never exactly even. You just kind of play what's in front of you. But I think for the Cavs in this one, you're coming off the second night of a back-to-back. You're playing a team that has been very good all year when they've had Giannis, Middleton, and Holiday, the 3 best players. They're doing as well as they're doing better than I might have expected without Brook Lopez right now is out with a back injury. Back surgery, excuse me, who's going to be out a while, and they just, Boogie Cousins is like a new addition for them. This is just a new reality for me when I look at what the Cavs sort of were going into. It's like, oh, this game's going to be hard to win, and it was, and they made it competitive because this team kind of just plays hard and will be kind of annoying to play. It seems like that's just like an actual trait, But winning this game in the second half of back-to-back wasn't expected. I just think you looked at Garland, you looked at Mobley in particular, and those two guys looked like a little fatigued as they kind of navigated this.
Yeah, they do. My biggest takeaway from this game actually has to kind of go hand in hand, especially with the Garland factor here. Jokes aside, yes, the Cavs do miss Colin Sexton, but it became kind of clear at points last night because Darius was looking a little gassed because the Cavs played 8 deep against Utah the night before. They went down to the wire against the Jazz and were one possession away from possibly winning that game. So the Cavs definitely looked a little gassed, and especially in the second half against Milwaukee. But the defensive pressure that Darius Garland was facing last night, like the Bucks understood the assignment. I think if you shut down Darius Garland, you kind of shut down the effectiveness. Like they couldn't fully shut him down in terms of playmaking. Like he got easy looks to Allen. I think the Bucks kind of dared Mobley to shoot 3-pointers a little bit because they didn't expect him to make them. It's just you need that secondary offensive threat in the backcourt to kind of limit the pressure on Darius defensively, because if he is getting the clamps put on him like he was against Drew Holiday, you need somebody else to create some offense. And I think the Cavs tried to do that by playing a little bit of Ricky Rubio, but Ricky Rubio was off as well. He looked a little gassed last night too. This Cavs team just looked tired. And I mean, I didn't expect them to win this game. It is what it is. But it's pretty clear, like they can take some pages from Milwaukee for in terms of like if they are hellbent and determined to continue playing big, whether it's with Markkanen, Mobley, and Allen, or even throwing a Coro into the mix, like watching Boogie Cousins just eat them alive, like carve them up by posting them up, or watching Bobby Portis be effective. I mean, Giannis is a huge outlier because he is a one-of-one type player, but Evan Mobley has the potential to be like that. I am curious to see the trajectory of this Cavs team, but the way and how physical the Bucks play is definitely a style I think the Cavs could adapt to their offensive repertoire, especially if JB is really hell bent and determined to say like, oh well, we're going to impose our will on a night-to-night basis on the interior, and then let the threes spray from there because teams will have to pack the paint against us. So I think there's definitely some learning they can pull from the Bucks, and I think if the Cavs I could visualize Cleveland like hitting that Milwaukee apex one day if like Mobley hits, if Garland hits, if Allen hits, and like they hit their upper percentile. Like, yeah, Giannis is a freak of nature. I think if Giannis didn't even play last night, I think the Cavs had a tough chance against this Milwaukee team. But yeah, I don't know. There's like some notes I've been taking away. Like the Cavs could learn a lot from their last three opponents, including Chicago tomorrow. Like there's some lessons and notes they could take if they really want to build their team and become like a legitimate playoff threat going forward.
Yeah, I think that is like I think in the moment I think it's certainly we're a little that's like a very for me like a very big picture thing, right? I think we are
Oh,
still
yeah, I'm
yeah,
looking like now and then I'm like, okay, well, Utah plays with the smaller backcourt and they play with size on the interior and on the wings, but they have
yeah,
shooting, defense, playmaking. Like there's stuff Cleveland can take from that. Milwaukee plays physically. Chicago is a team that has a lot of young, promising talent, but they accumulated their assets and went all in on this.
yeah,
And there's a lot of stuff Cleveland can pull from those three, which I
yeah.
think is encouraging.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think also just like the Cavs are still at the beginning to some
Mm-hmm.
degree, and they're not close to a finished product. There's not really anyone on this team that I would describe like Kevin Love is sort of and Rubio are sort of in their own category. Um,
Yeah, they have like over 10
yeah,
years of experience
yeah,
that,
and
that
like
are
everyone
different.
else is like I think relatively unfinished. The other thing I just want to note is a Rubio thing because I think the Sexton thing is worth noting in I think in this specific context because Rubio has I think cooled off as a scorer. You are seeing him take still the same kind of shots he was taking, the same kind of shots he's taking when he gets hot. Evan, since I'm gonna run you through since he went 3 of 19 on November 7th. That was that game in New York where the Cavs won by 17. He was incredible in that one. He was 6 of 15 the next night, 2 of 9 the next night, 4 of 7 after that, then 9 of 20, 8 of 17, 4 of 15, 4 of 12, 5 of 20, 1 of 6, 3 of 11, 1 of 5, 3 of 11, 6 of 11, and lastly 2 of 9. He has not been as hot as he was to start the year. He has been basically the opposite in a lot of ways since that game. You know, he had 15 against the Jazz, but the last several games it's been 7. It was 7-6, 7-15, and 7. You know, since again that 20, like he had that really big night. Like it's just not been Rubio at the score. Like that guy is never really what he's been. the Cavs like kind of just are crying out for like a shot maker, and Rubio is taking some of them sort of by default, but that has not ever been what he's good at. I
Nope.
think there are some like alterations you need to make to kind of like massage this. I think like maybe some more Jetty minutes, even though like he wasn't, good. I don't think particularly good last night either. Like you have some trickiness here to kind of navigate. And as much as like I think Rubio has been helpful to this team, like you see some of the limitations of what he does. I think
Yep.
when your offense is just kind of like crying out for someone to do stuff, and like Rubio like pull up threes are not exactly like quality offense. So this is just
No,
like
they're
a tricky
not.
thing to admit. This is just the reality of what I think this roster is. Like Sexton was obviously navigating a different role. He was navigating playing more off ball, scoring less and everything. But like a guy to kind of at least take some of these shots would be helpful, even if like that's a very simplified way of describing what he does and what he was doing. Like this team isn't just missing something in that regard as far as like just kind of being a more functional offensive team. And I think
Yeah.
particularly against a team like the Bucks, where like you are never going to just be able to defense them out of this game, right? It was very clear, like Drew Holiday, when Jetty Osman was guarding him, could get whatever shots he wanted and get into the paint and find the open guy. Giannis had a big strength advantage, when he was guarded by Mobley and did some work on Middleton didn't have his best night, but was still getting to his spots. Like they were not going to defend their way into a win against a team like Milwaukee. That wasn't going to happen. So how they navigate this going forward, and again, they'll have some easier games. Like even the Bulls game on Wednesday, DeMar DeRozan's in the COVID-19 protocols. Caruso is dealing with a hamstring injury. Like that's probably not going to be a full strength Bulls team. So that's perhaps a more winnable game. What?
That Bulls team did beat the bricks off the Nuggets last night.
Correct, they did. But I'm saying like I'm just saying on paper, no
Yeah,
DeRozan, no Caruso
and
is in a vacuum an easier game at home when you
I
had a day off.
I just think that the Rubio point is a very true, and I think he's regressing back to the mean of what he actually is. I think the Olympic hot streak, and I think him just coming in hot to the season, he's just kind of cooling off, like you said, and just becoming the Ricky
If
Rubio that
if
everyone
yeah,
knows
when
at
the
this
Cavs say
point.
they want like Spanish team Rubio, that is a Rubio that has never actually existed in the NBA for an extended period of time.
Nope.
Anyway, Evan, let's talk. Let's
No,
resume
but
this after the
also
break.
the Cavs are also regressing back to the mean is my point too. Like I think they're starting to head back towards what I expected them to be, a little higher than my expectation. I still think they'll be in like the contention for the play-in, but like this is a tough week, and then they get Minnesota, who is by no means is an easy out. Then they get Sacramento, and I haven't looked that far ahead down their schedule, but they play the Rockets, who are surprisingly red hot right now. But you know what else makes me red hot, Chris?
Mhm.
Trial renewal trials that renew without my consent. Nailed it. And you know who can help us out? Today's sponsor, TrueBill. Did you know, folks, that free trials renew without your consent? Like I just said, it's a business scam out to get you. Do not let greedy corporations pocket your money. So download TrueBill today to take control of your subscriptions. TrueBill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to 720 big ones a year with TrueBill. Because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, TrueBill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and TrueBill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in just one tap. And your TrueBill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. Did you know, Chris, that TrueBill has saved over 2 million users and helped them save $100 million? It's pretty neat.
Very good.
Don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/lockedonnba. Go right now, truebill.com/lockedonnba. It could save you thousands a year. truebill.com/lockedonnba. When you're stressing about those trials renewing without your consent, you might need to unwind with Theragun, and also it might help you take off the stress of daily life that weighs on your body. Whether you're an elite athlete or someone like me, not an elite athlete, just trying to make it through the day tension-free is hard, and Theragun can help. Theragun is the handheld percussive therapy device that releases your deepest muscle tension using a scientifically calibrated combo of depth, speed, and power, and it's as quiet as an electric toothbrush. The Gen 4 Theragun doesn't just feel good, it gets to the source of the pain by releasing tension using Theragun's signature percussive therapy, which goes 60% deeper than vibration alone. Whether you want to treat your muscle tension from working out, an injury, or just the stresses of everyday life, there is no substitute for the Theragun Gen 4. The OLED screen makes the design and it makes you feel like you're holding something from the future. Just go to their site and check it out, and the Theragun app learns from your behaviors and suggests guided routines. Try Theragun for 30 days starting at only $199. Go to therabody.com/lockedon right now and get your Gen 4 Theragun today. That's therabody.com/lockedon, therabody.com/lockedon.
All right, let's continue a little bit more on Cavs Bucks. Evan, do you have any other like small minor takeaways from this one that we haven't touched on?
Well, I mean, other than Darius looking gassed and Drew Holiday kind of putting him in prison, I thought, I mean, yeah, Jetty was a bit of a mess at times last night, but for some reason, for whatever it's worth, he was a key figure in sparking this Cavs team and kind of keeping them hanging in there in the fourth quarter. Like this Bucks team kind of felt like they were cruising throughout this. It didn't feel like Milwaukee really was losing this game. Like
No.
the Cavs would get close, and then Milwaukee would just like flip the switch for like a couple possessions and just like stretch the lead back out to 10 or 12 points. And like there's just that back and forth of that. But like Osman, for what it's worth, like did not have a great night shooting wise. 1 of 8 from 3, 3 of 11 overall from the floor. But like those 3 steals in the fourth quarter were a big momentum shifter. And I do agree. Like I think the Cavs need to find that shot creator coming off the bench for them, because right now it's Darius Garland, and then he's Darius Garland setting up Larry Markkinen and Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. And since Rubio's cooled off, maybe they lean more on Osmond. And I don't know. I saw some encouraging stuff from Jetty through all the muckiness, and that's just kind of one of my smaller takeaways.
Yeah, I think Jetty like still like he will provide some positive things, and like he's one of the few guys on the team that I think will just sort of make plays sometimes in a way that you kind of need sometimes. He's sort of weirdly dynamic, and everything. I thought it was notable that Isaac Okoro only played 18 minutes. I think you could be seeing like like maybe not like him removed, but I think dialing him back with a little more Jetty, even if he continues to start, might be a thing we see. He just looks, I think he looks very uncomfortable on offense more than he looks unskilled. And I wonder if we're going to see him get some time to just kind of navigate this cleanly. It's a hard thing to do in season, but he didn't
See, the
play well
problem
particularly well.
is, yeah, no, Isaac Okoro just hasn't been great offensively. Like JB Bickerstaff was asked about that pregame, and he said he's not too worried about it. He encourages Isaac to keep shooting it, but it's becoming more and more evident that teams don't respect the Cavs offensively when Isaac is floating on the perimeter. It's 4-on-5 essentially when the Cavs play offense at that point. And like the Cavs have tried to find ways to get Isaac more involved, and there's times you see like, okay, he's feeling a little better from that hamstring injury, but I'm just curious who the Cavs supplant his minutes with, because I just don't know who the option is, because it's
It's
clearly not Dylan
well,
Windler. It's
that
probably Osmond, but
yeah, I think like Jetty playing more isn't like a bad solution. But JB's like interest in that is perhaps like we'll see how far he wants to extend that. I think he's kind of wisely slowly dial up the Jetty after Jetty was really bad last year, and I think there was some lack of trust in what Jetty kind of provided after last year went.
yeah.
But it's just this is a thing worth monitoring, and as we'll talk about, I think with Windler kind of in more detail. It's very hard at times. The development of players in the league can get very tricky when like you level up in a way and you're just like squeezing on these margins, and it's very hard sometimes to like just find enough space to kind of figure stuff out. And we'll
Hmm.
see where it goes. I will say Kevin Love just like looking very good in a lot of ways in this one, like very engaged, through an incredible pass in this one to get an assist, just like whipped the ball down. I think Jared Allen to get a dunk. Again, 5 of 11 from 3 in his about 20 minutes. Like was not good on Sunday. Looked good and fresh and engaged in this one, which continues to be a positive sign. Interesting too that basically like I think that Jared Allen just like will try to dunk, like watching him in Boogie, like and Boogie isn't like peak Boogie anymore,
No, the
you know?
Achilles is really slowing him
Yeah, like
down.
yeah, the various injuries he's had have really hampered what he was back like when he was in Sacramento or when he got to New Orleans, but like still a very physical, like grinding dude. And like I enjoyed watching him and Jared Allen just kind of like squabble inside at times. Like I think Jared Allen
Hmm.
is like underratedly kind of a physical dude, and that was fun. I had fun with that kind of entanglement. And Portis is also like very intense. And you could also see like Mobley like having to navigate a very intense kind of grinding center on the other side a little bit. This is just one of those games where I think you just look at this and I go, okay, the Cavs won the second night of a back-to-back. The Bucks shot it much better and felt in control the whole game. Like how this ended up with the Cavs like shooting under 40% from the field, 32% from three. The Bucks were just like much better across the board and kind of controlled the game even when the Cavs got it close. Like they called that timeout and then it was kind of over from there. Like this game just kind of felt like it had a very clear flow to me. So I don't really like feel like I learned a ton other than some of like these. Like I think the Okoro minutes is maybe that and just like Garland looking a little tired and that kind of stagnating the offense as Rubio doesn't shoot well. I think those are kind of the only two things that I kind of look at and say, oh, this kind of maybe we should monitor this in some detail going forward.
Yeah, I think that's definitely worth monitoring. I question JB's approach sometimes where he coaches every game. It's not very tactical sometimes with how he handles back to backs, where he kind of just goes all in on the first game of a back to back. Like I admire the Cavs grinding, clawing the way back against Utah, but when that game was out of reach, I do wonder with how gassed, especially some of these younger players looked, if maybe JB just pulled the cord on this a little earlier against Utah and just took a loss and maybe tried again against Milwaukee. I do wonder about that because JB just kind of plays like every game like they're in there to win, which I respect, but there's some tactical stuff to that. But the Okoro stuff is definitely worth monitoring. I'm intrigued to see how they handle that going forward. I wonder if he's going to have a short leash, if he's just off in a liability offensively. Like, yeah, you can provide so much on the other end of the floor, but if you only provide us 50% of what the team needs, yeah. And so it's that, and I'm also just interested to see who steps up in the event that happens. Like, would you be opposed to Lamar Stevens getting more minutes over
I mean,
Isaac?
if Lamar Stevens hit, I think like
He was 2 of 4 from 3 last night,
yeah, well, I
which
would
is 2 more
basically
than Isaac Okoro made.
yeah, I mean, yeah, and they look good. I think I would just say that it's for me, it's more of the rotation maybe like shouldn't be like seven dudes with like like eight dudes with like a splash of like a guy playing 11 minutes. Like I wonder
Yeah.
if like just extending the rotation some to play more dudes is probably more of a sustainable answer. It's kind of a cop out, but
But
I
the issue in
wonder if
itself is
like
who do they play? Denzel Valentine? Because Dean Wade
no, I
is
mean, I
slowly
think you could. I
progressing
think you
back.
could like instead of playing like Mobley, like the or like market in 34 minutes, dial him back to 30 and get Lamar up to like 15. Like I think that's just
Ah,
like a sustainable thing to kind of help guys stay fresh
okay.
as we kind of go on here. That is just like a thing for me where I just look at it and it's like there is also just like a fatigue thing that I think will be worth watching. Like not necessarily as much now, but like March, April, things like that. So.
You know what else is worth watching though, Chris? These ad reads.
Well, yeah, if they're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Anyway, I got to tell everyone about our friends at Boost Mobile, new sponsor of the show. Look, you listen to podcasts for the power of knowledge. You switch to Boost Mobile for the power of saving money. Because with Boost, you get the power of a free 5G phone. That's right, a free 5G phone. So you can listen to all of the latest episodes. The power of 3 unlimited data lines for $30 a month per line so your family can harness all that brain power too. And you also get the power of one of America's largest 5G networks. You can do it all at the speed of 5G. With all that money you'll save and all that knowledge you'll gain, just how powerful will you become? Switch to Boost Mobile and find out. Get a free Samsung Galaxy A32 5G when you switch to one of America's largest 5G networks. More power to save. That's Boost Mobile. Disclaimer, free phone limited to new customers and one per line. Additional restrictions apply. Offers / coverage not available everywhere or for all phones / network. See boostmobile.com for details. All right, Evan. Let's go to Dylan Windler, who is on assignment with the Cleveland Charge. Goes down. He will play as well on Wednesday for the Cleveland Charge. He came off the bench in this game, wearing number 10 instead of his number 9 because number 9 is worn by Norval Perel for the Charge. Didn't play well, I would say. But here's
Nah.
my take. Here's like my firm take on this. Dylan Windler is someone who just like needs to play some basketball right now. Dylan Windler is the idea of Dylan Windler, the spacing guy who can provide some needed shooting and kind of just fill a needed role on this Cavs team, provide some missing stuff for this team. The idea of him has obviously been much better than I think what the reality is. But
Yeah.
what he kind of gets a chance to do here is he gets to play 24 minutes. That's more than he's played at any point this year.
Mm-hmm.
He took 7 shots, he had 8 rebounds, 2 assists. He was in the game late. He gets to shake off some of the rust. He gets to kind of develop himself a little bit in a way that he just isn't getting a chance to at the NBA level because he's just not getting to play minutes. For comparison, I want to I wrote about this for Forbes. You can go read it. So he has played as of going into last night. Obviously, he didn't play in the NBA last night. He's played 667 total NBA minutes since he got drafted in 2019. Okay, that's obviously because of the various injuries he's had, the pandemic screwed with things. There's a lot of like reasons for that. But by comparison, Isaac Okoro played 2,173 minutes last year as a rookie in a shortened COVID season where he appeared in 67 of 72 games. Dylan Windler has basically just like not been able to play consistent basketball after playing 30 minutes a game every single year for his last 3 years at Belmont and was a 20-minute a game guy as a freshman. He is basically like gone from being like playing lots of basketball probably his entire life and never having injury to basically losing like a bunch of time. And like that is just a really, really tricky thing, I think, for anyone to navigate. Where he is at now for me is kind of just an unknown. But I think for him, if they're willing to let him go there and even if they need to yo-yo him, I think that's doable. You have Valentine and Stevens and stuff like you can make do with the wings you have at the NBA level right now. Like you can make do with what you have up there and kind of get through, but depth wise, I think if you're going to salvage whatever Windler is, and he is going to be something for you, this is a path to do so.
Yeah. I think it's that, and I think you need to normalize the stigma associated with sending a player on assignment to the G League to rehab. Because, like, verbatim, literally, this is JB said that there's a lack of opportunities, there's a lack of consistency, there's a lack of normalcy for Dylan when it comes to riding the pine at the Cavs. Like, he isn't guaranteed minutes on a night-to-night basis, whether it's garbage time or that one game about a week or two ago where he really bounced back, and I started monitoring his stats and just went back down again. So this is just a good opportunity for him to get some burn, get some rust. Dan Jarreau's running the same exact system the Cavs run, albeit with like lesser talented players, sure. But I mean, it's still basketball that the Cavs are playing, and like they're playing back to back against the Iowa Wolves. I'll be at the game tonight, Tuesday, when they take on the Wolves again, just to see how Dylan Windler's progressing and everything. And I think it's tough. I think again, the idea of Dylan Windler is really impactful for the Cavs. I just think injuries have taken their toll. I think lower leg injuries like the ones he's dealt with are really tricky to navigate and hard to recover from. And I think there's like a confidence and reliability. It's not just the physical recovery, it's the mental recovery as well, because every time you suffer an injury that sets you back when you think you're going to get back out there, it takes its toll. And I think that's just tough. I empathize with Dylan a lot, but I think this is a great opportunity. And I think people need to stop freaking out saying like, oh my God, a first round pick got sent down to the G League. No, this is the 26 overall pick. Yes, with the power of hindsight, the Cavs should have taken Keldon Johnson based on the Shams Charania draft blunder, but this is where we're at now. And I think this is a good opportunity and it's something worth watching. And I think he should get more than just 2 games with the Charge. I think he should play maybe 10, 15 games with the Charge and really condition himself. And like I said, the Cavs then will have like a solid sample size of data and footage to say, okay, this is where Dylan Windler's at and this is what we're working with.
So I think the point about like lack of normalcy and all of that, I think is really just sort of at the root of this because the Cavs are in a position where they are better than perhaps like expected, right? Like they're above 500 right now. They have real playing aspirations. You see this even I think with Okoro too, because like if you're gonna give these younger guys like a limited leeway to just figure stuff out, you would just let them play 30 minutes a night and make mistakes and go be more akin to what the Rockets or the Magic are doing, right? You'd try to create structure, but you would also just let your young guys play. Dylan Windler is not in a spot where like the Cavs, like JB clearly doesn't feel like they have the leeway to do that. And he's going to try to win games. There's probably something like he wants to make sure he keeps his job as well by winning actual basketball games for the first time. Like that is all kind of playing into this. And like Windler is a guy that gets squeezed out of that because he's not like he's not a former like high pick. He's a former late first round pick who's had bad injury issues, who hasn't like shown enough in the flashes you've seen from him to make it worth your while to just burn him 20 minutes tonight and let him play into comfortability. The G League is a path for him to do this. The other part of this that I think is a sign of where the G League could be going as a tool for teams is that D'Angelo Rowe was on the Cavs staff. He's worked with Dylan Windler before. He's familiar with Dylan Windler. The systems are similar. Not everything is exactly the same, obviously, because the personnel is different and everything, but like there is overlap there. The transition for Windler to go down now, and it obviously being in Cleveland instead of, let's say, Canton, even though that's not far, it's like it's still just more convenient. Like the way to do this is a little bit cleaner now than it might have even been when Windler was younger, and he did have a brief stint in the G League before he had to shut it down at one point. So I think all of this just kind of like, to me, this makes sense. And look, again, you have like Denzel Valentine is not like an actual rotation player for you, right? But if you have like a game where, like, let's say Okoro sprains his ankle, or like Stevens sprains his ankle, or like you have one of these guys misses an off night, or like Dean Wade continues to be out, you can just like you can make do for a couple nights with 10 minutes of Denzel Valentine standing in the corner and playing defense, as Dylan
Yeah.
Windler can like maybe play 30 minutes a night for the Charge. Like
Yep.
that to me is like I would rather Dylan Windler get it if he's going to succeed in the NBA. He just like needs to play, and if this gets him a chance where they can collect data on him and understand him better, and he can get into a rhythm and look comfortable on the court for the first time, and it what feels like a long time to me, because to me he looks timid and uncomfortable. Like even in the Charge game, I didn't think he looked exactly like in the flow of what was going on. Like this is to me a more realistic way of getting him to a spot where you can actually feel like, and look, they picked up his contract option for next year. It is not like, debilitating. It is like a few $1,000,000 that they can add onto a trade if they need to aggregate salary. Like ultimately, like he's not a guy that is baked into the long-term plans here, right? But this
Yep.
is a guy that like you theoretically like will have on the roster next year. So like I think if you're gonna like play still a bit of a long game here, and you should be, this is a way to develop him and try to get something out of him. I think this is just I think like people that seem to be reacting to saying this is bad, I think are kind of missing the forest for the trees a little bit. I think the Cavs are
Yeah.
dead on in sending him to the G League.
Yeah, they absolutely were. This is something you and I have been advocating for a while too. So I feel like when the news dropped, I wasn't necessarily surprised. I think JV's made it explicitly clear he wants to utilize the Charge being more or less their next door neighbors as a rehab tool, as an option to help the players that maybe need extra minutes bounce back, or players who aren't getting time and exposure on the roster opportunities to bounce back. Like the Cavs clearly still believe in Dylan Windler. They picked up his contract option for next season, so like there's still a little bit of time here. But
Well, and if
as
I'll play the cynic here just for a second. You pick up that contract option because it's like a very cheap salary as well.
it's a
It's not
trade
just
chip. We've talked
yeah, it's
about
not
that.
like yeah, it's not exactly like we believe, like they will say publicly we believe in this guy, but there's a cap reason you do that as well.
No, I know, but as Nick Trezino said on Fear the Sword, like Dylan Windler's running out of time, and the Cavs should do right by him to give him as many opportunities as possible to show that he still has some NBA merit, because it may not be with Cleveland, it could be with another team. And this is just an overall bummer of a story, because I still remember that half-court three-pointer he made in the Salt Lake City Summer League. I'm like, okay, the Cavs have a little something here, and then it's just been just a continuous downward spiral with a couple like blips every now and then. Like if this was secret bases collapse, like that would be the apex, and we just see like a gradual decline of like a couple jumps every now and then, just to slow down the gradual descent into nothing.
Windler in Utah was like just taking threes and like was willing to just shoot whenever he was open, and like that guy doesn't exist right now.
Yeah, he's
And
a
I'm
shell of
sure that
himself. That's how he was at Belmont
yeah,
too.
and I'm sure there's something to the fact that he has played very little basketball for basically like 3 years. There's just
Yep.
something to that to me.
It's the mental hurdles you have to get over. Because remember when his first one of his first few games back, he went up for a big dunk and like landed a little weirdly. I held my breath when that happened, and that I think you asked him about it post game. He's just like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, I was a little nervous, but I felt okay." Because like you're like, it's different. I don't know if folks have suffered like a lower leg injury, but when that happens, you don't necessarily trust your body at first, because mentally you don't think your bones are gonna break, or you're gonna deal with an injury where you have to completely recover and learn how to walk and function again. So like there's a little bit of like nervousness when you're doing some like normal, what you would perceive as normal tasks, until it kind of becomes routine. And unfortunately, it never becomes routine for Dylan Windler because he doesn't play.
Yeah. All right, that's gonna be it. We'll talk maybe perhaps more about Windler tomorrow's show as he plays again. We'll kind of at least update you on what he's doing, or at least we'll try to, depending on when we get to recording. We'll be back after Cavs Bulls as well later in the week because the Cavs are getting that game at home on Wednesday.
We should
Season's
book
kind of
friend of
flying
the
by.
pod and best Cleveland beat writer Ashley Bastock because she'll be at the game on Wednesday.
That's true. Yeah, we'll have to. We have some like scheduling we need to do to
We do.
context you, but at least I do. Anyway, everyone, be well. We'll talk to you soon, and thanks for tuning in a little bit later on this Tuesday, December 7th. Oh, play the outro video, Chris, you dummy.